Yep. Hey, welcome to the podcast, Christen.
Hi, thanks for having me, Asher. Long time no see.
Very long time. I guess I'd say fellow SPUSU alum. I don't know if I get to claim the
Yes.
status or not.
I didn't know that you didn't graduate, so I don't think you get to claim the stat, to be honest. I think
No,
alums, you have to graduate from the school. I think that's how
fair,
it works.
fair enough, fair enough. Well, but I'll claim it anyways because it's no longer in it's no longer in existence, so to speak. But to introduce you to the audience and just to kick the conversation off, I like to ask you the question: who do you say you are?
I say I'm Kristen. I'm Kristen Ferguson. Well, no, actually, I'm Kristen. I could say now.
Mm,
Still getting used to that, even though it's been over a year of a name change. Um, I am a quirky individual who lives life on her own terms.
mhm.
Um, I work hard, I play harder, and I love my family and all the things that we do.
Well said. And I guess you didn't
Thanks.
you didn't decide to go the hyphenated route.
No, I was like, should I give you the answer I give in interviews when they say, tell me about yourself? I thought about that,
Yeah,
but I was like, it's a little bit more casual than a job interview.
yeah.
So I'll just tell you what I feel like telling you. To be completely honest, I hate this for myself and for you at this moment, but I like took a 30-minute nap right before this call. So
Mm.
I'm like still waking. I know you see my Coca-Cola because, slept late, went to church this morning, and it's just been a long day. I went around
Mm.
looking for pumpkins because I wanted to do some pumpkin carving, like I told you, with the
Yeah,
family. We just decided to do it tomorrow.
it's too much.
Because everyone was
It's
tired. Yeah,
it's funny.
everyone was
I went by the I was on a store run going to the produce store, and they set up like a pumpkin patch outside of it, and I was just kind of scratching my head. I'm like, what is a pumpkin patch, by the way? And I guess it's just like an area for kids to go around and play next to the pumpkins and stuff like that because they're all
tired.
part of like the squash family.
I
And
wondered the same thing, and we went to a pumpkin patch yesterday.
yeah,
Yes.
what was that
I just,
experience like for you?
it's the first time I went, and I think it's a little unnecessary, but you know, in the spirit of Halloween, people do
Mhm.
it. For the purpose of being festive, people do a lot of things. And
True.
now that I have a little one, I'm like, let me try to be more festive because
Mm,
I'm the least festive person I know.
mm,
And half the time, I just don't get it. I'm just like, maybe for photos. I get
yeah,
it for photos. Otherwise,
it's something to
we
do, I
could do
guess.
something. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things to do, but it was cute.
Mm.
We rode on a tractor. We saw some goats, some sheep, some turkeys. It was interesting.
It's like there's dinner in a few weeks or next month.
Exactly. Well, Thanksgiving and Christmas are around the corner, so I guess people have to be mindful of that.
Yeah. So what I guess what's the feeling like now being married and just being like in the married life, the mom life versus
Uh,
like
you
just
know,
the individual life or the engineering life?
you know, it's actually not too bad. I think for me, I if anyone actually knows me, that I live life like with no rules. Like I just do things. Now that I have a partner in life and a child, I can't do that. That's what makes it a little bit more difficult. But I'm grateful that my husband, he's also as like sporadic and eccentric as me.
Mhm.
So we do things randomly together. And so it just gives me a partner to like, go through life.
Yeah.
It is a little different because you have to be mindful of just being a little bit more conversational when you don't agree. And
Mm.
usually I'm used to just, all right, well, I don't have to deal with this. but can't do that anymore. So
Yeah.
it just commissions me to be more open, more honest, and more communicative.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess what was that a difficult decision to say, like, let me try this partner thing or marriage thing out and just make it work versus just like, I do what I want.
Was it difficult to make the decision to get married?
Mhm.
Is that what you're asking? Not really. I was like, let's give it a shot. A lot of people are doing things in life that they don't want to do. So it's like, let me try something I've never done before
Mhm.
and see if it works for me and see how it can work for me, work for us.
Gotcha.
And we're still working on it day by day. We didn't know each other very well. We
Mm.
grew to know each other. We got married after 6 months of knowing each other. So it was like really interesting.
That's pretty
That's for
quick. I
sure.
guess did you go the arranged marriage route or like how'd, how'd you meet? It's not a bad option. I mean, it's like everybody's got everybody's got decisions. I might
No,
I might consider it. Maybe not. Maybe not.
child, let me tell you, I used to always tell people that I knew and loved and who knew me, I wish, you guys could arrange my marriage because that whole dating landscape, it was weird. Don't get me wrong. When I was single, I loved being single and just like living my life on my terms. But
Mhm.
I always wanted to be married. I always wanted to be married and have kids. So I'm like, dang, can I just get there? So last year when I met my husband, like we just got along very well from the beginning. And
Mhm.
like I guess from we met, we spoke about getting married and we got married.
That sounds like a good plan. And
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that we're very similar in nature because not too many people would do that.
mhm.
We have, I won't say we had similar upbringings. We have very different upbringings. We have different background altogether. It
Mm,
just, when we got together with our friends and family,
mhm.
it just flowed. It was easy.
Got you. I think
Mhm,
one of my sisters did that where I'm originally Cameroonian and
mhm.
uh, I don't how do I say originally like I'm Cameroonian born,
Yeah,
naturalized US citizen. I guess um
you could have said I'm from Cameroon.
yes. Very very simple. Thank you.
I get what you're saying.
Right, right. But it's like being from Cameroon, I think my sister, she met her husband, he's also Cameroonian and they met and from the time that they met, I think it was almost like 6 months or so getting to
I
know
got
each other
married.
and then they decided to get married. And it's just like I didn't I was curious where the how would you say? Like what's your background and like the how the dynamics played out for you?
Like our differences.
Mhm.
So I am, let me see. I'm first generation American, but my my husband is not from America. He's from Nigeria.
Mm,
And he only moved to America 10 years ago. And he
okay.
is like 11 years older than me. So he is very much so like a mature
Mhm.
individual who was born and raised in Nigeria with those customs, with those cultural norms
Mm,
that I have no idea about. So he came here and he worked hard and he lived his life. And I was born and raised here. I played
mhm.
hard. I lived my life. And, and then I'm like living my life. He's here by himself, essentially.
Mhm.
I'm here with my whole entire family. So that is the difference in just our backgrounds in like the most superficial overview.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say when it came to like the fundamentals of like good qualities you would want someone to have,
Mm,
I think we both possess that. Like he goes to church every
mhm.
single Sunday. I was raised by churchgoers, but I gotta admit, I wasn't really going to church like that. But even before we married, I started going to his church with him.
Mhm.
And I thought that was like awesome. I've never dated anybody who went to church
Mm.
faithfully every single Sunday.
Mhm.
um, it's something that I admire, even though I didn't do it myself. He's conversational. He's not petty, meaning like, you know, you meet people this day and age, if you do something that they don't like, they will like one up you or 10 up you. He is
Yeah.
not like that. I'm like that. But he has helped me kind of like wheel it in because I mean, I just need to grow up sometimes and I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But from we met, like it was just like party after party after party, celebration after celebration, like good times, bad times, high times, low times. And we just had a good time throughout.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it still is awesome.
You're
And
just
now we have a
recovering from your
little
nap.
one. Exactly. Exactly. But now we have a little girl. She is so adorable. She is 8 months. So she has just been, you know, keeping us distracted as life goes on.
What's that been like, the being a mom?
It's really interesting. I still can't believe I'm a mom, really. I feel like I'm still like young
Yeah.
and fresh,
Mhm.
but now I have a life to take care of. I'm grateful because I have a lot of support in my family and even in Monday's family and friends. Very, very much so like a village we have over here, which not everyone has.
True.
So between that, I think my job also has given me a lot of flexibility to hone in on my mothering. It's just, I like it. It's
Mm.
pretty good. What about you? Are you dating Asher? Do you have a wife? Do
No,
you have kids?
I'm not married or kidded up yet, but uh, it's funny, and just in having interactions like this, even considering dating, it's like I'm making an effort, so to speak, and like reaching out to people. Like I'm not reaching out to you to date because obviously you're married, but like at least putting myself out in a way to like speak to women and just be in an environment that's more public. I'm socializing more. So,
Okay, like what
um,
have you been doing differently?
from you're saying like from before?
Yeah, like now that you're putting yourself out
I'm
there
just
and being
just
more
making
social.
just just making an effort to reach out to old friends and just see where people are at. And what was it? I thought about trying like a dating app or something, but it was called like Boo or something like that. And like I started
I've never
going
heard
through
of
it,
it.
and it was like an assess
Questionnaire.
huh?
Yeah. Like a
Yeah. Yeah,
questionnaire.
it was like a
Okay, yeah.
questionnaire. I was like, I've never seen this before, because like before I tried what was it, Tinder, or I tried Bumble, and I was like, these are different. But I mean, it's like it's the dating scene or whatnot. And it this one seemed to get like super intrusive, and they was talking about like spirits. And I was like, I come from a Christian background, and coming from Cameroon, it's like the way people would talk about spirits and witchcraft and things like that. I'm like, yeah, that's not something I'm willing to play with. So I
Mhm.
logged off of there. But for the most part, just reaching out to people. I live near a college town, so I think I'll make an effort to go out and just at least acknowledge people when I see them. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe approach someone, just be like, hey, like, would you like to get some coffee or something like that? Just make
Coffee.
what is that? Is that too simplistic?
Yes, what the heck you know, I have this debate all the time with people because I'm
Yeah.
like, coffee is like, okay, if you're gonna go on a date with someone,
Mhm.
I think you know, I don't know who your audience is. So let me just
I
speak
just
from
this
my
this this is
perspective.
just us speaking.
Oh, okay. So I think that as women, you
Mhm.
know, we always want to put our best foot forward, like especially if we're going on a date. And
Mhm.
maybe guys think the same too. Like people want to put their best foot forward typically when they
Mhm.
meet someone. I think from my perspective, to get dressed up, all dolled up, to go get coffee, for me, it's like frustrating.
Well, I think we just put 2 different things together because at like, were we talking like first date or like major date or like
Yeah.
how do you classify these?
Oh, well, I'm thinking you're saying, oh, I see someone and I'm talking to them. Oh, they
Oh,
seem
no, no,
nice.
that
Would you like to go
I was
grab coffee?
right. So like, how would you say? A friend of mine that I reached out to recently, like I was in DC and we went like I just happened to be in this museum and kind of looking around. Like they have the African American History Museum there. They've got
Mhm.
like everything on
The
in the Capitol
Smithsonian.
Mall, the Smithsonian,
Mhm.
all of that. And it's like I noticed that we were looking at similar things. And I
Mhm.
think this was like a while back. And I looked over and I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Just like making small talk. And
Oh,
from making small talk, I was just like, "If you're not busy, would you mind getting lunch with me?" Or and it's just like
okay.
that's where I'm saying like coffee in that sense, like just making a first approach. Like obviously,
Okay.
if it's someone that I'd known for a while, like I would make more of an effort. But at the same time, the reason I even started, I would start with coffee. Maybe it's naive or maybe being frugal or cheap or whatever we might call it. But it's like, um, in getting to know somebody, I don't want to set false expectations or just be clear on like, okay, if it's
Mhm.
like a big date night, it's like, yeah, like we can get dressed up, go out, enjoy
Mhm.
it. But for me, myself personally, like I don't want to, how would you say, I don't want to diminish the person. So I don't want to make them feel like I'm wasting their time. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to like if I'm not able to take somebody to like a 5-star dinner or 5-star restaurant to be like, hey, first date, we're going rooftop. It's like there's a big difference between that and like wherever else we'd put a coffee date or something like that. But maybe you could just coach me up on this and I can correct my ways.
I don't know. I I don't know, to be honest. Like I think, you know, I am I don't know. I guess I'm not like super flexible when it comes to the dating landscape. I believe in gender roles. I believe in go big or go home. I believe in, putting your best foot forward, having fun,
Mm,
being not having any expectations, to be honest. Like,
mhm,
um, I think when I would, I will say, I never really dated. Like after college, I dated in college only one person, but then after college, I was like, I think life was just hard. So
mm,
I didn't date a ton. And then I made some like poor mistakes in my dating world where I would just like entertain people who would be like, looking back, why the heck would I do that?
mhm,
Like, what in the world? But then in like 2017, my dad passed away, and my sister was like, girl, you got to get out there. Life is not going to wait for you.
mm,
So I got on Tinder and I was dating on Tinder in like 2018. And it was cool. I think Tinder then is totally different from what it is now, from what
mm.
I hear.
Yeah,
And, you could find some gems then. And I
yeah,
think I met some really awesome people along the way, had a lot of fun, learned how to date,
mm.
like just to enjoy myself, not necessarily with like, oh my gosh, I'm about to marry this man. And then, my feelings are so like yeah, like I wasn't the one who went through those crushed feelings crying
Mm,
episodes. No, I just like, I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to learn to enjoy life since I didn't for so long.
mm,
So then I think I lived that Tinder, Bumble, coffee meets bagel life
mm,
for like 2 or 3 years, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, since 2018 and 2021. Didn't really get in any relationships. Hold on for a second.
Okay.
Can I pause for a
Yeah,
second?
I got you. But dating 101.
Oh yeah. So I lived the app dating life for a little while, like had a lot of fun, like lived a lot of lives. And then I actually met my husband. I would say I met him virtually too. And I asked him out to meet, not for dating purposes, but for like professional purposes. And we met up. Wait, let me say. So I was talking to him on LinkedIn in like December, and he called me in January to like give me well wishes for the new year, blah, blah, blah. So I called him back when I came back to town, and I was like, oh, thank you so much for the call. It would be great. Let's catch up. Let's go grab a meal. So we grabbed lunch, and the rest was history. Like, it was a really good encounter. And after like we parted ways, he called me and just said he wanted to date me for real, not like this hangout professional situation we were trying to do. And I was like, oh, we can do that. But I wasn't gonna work with him anymore, like in a professional sense. And from then, it was just really gravy, because then my birthday is in February. I met him in January. So he had an opportunity to meet like my whole family, because they had a surprise birthday for me that year. Friends, extended friends, cousins, extended cousins, like everybody was at this party. And he had, I feel like nobody I ever really dated was around my family like that. So it was just kind of like a telling experience off the top. But I say all this to say, like, a lot of people date with rules. A lot of people date with, oh, you shouldn't talk about this on the first date. Or, oh, like, I don't want somebody to take advantage of me, so I'm not going to do this, that, or the other. And I'm like, if you're constantly thinking from a place of, I don't want, or like, I'm afraid of this or afraid of that, like, that's exactly what you're going to get every single time, no matter what you do. You can't avoid it. Like, you really have to change your perspective on how, like, your encounter with people will be. Like, you have to be excited, you know, you have to be optimistic. If something doesn't feel right, then it's not right. Just leave it at that. Don't try to make fetch happen. I always say that, like, I don't even know if I call them red flags, but it's like, if you're not feeling something, then be off it. Like, that's okay. You don't have to explain yourself.
Right. I agree with you, definitely. And I guess that's what I was saying from, I guess my short answer to how do I date? The short answer would have been, haven't dated in a while, so I don't know. But I'm open to the experience overall, because it's like, in meeting someone impromptu and just being like, hey, do you want to grab dinner? Like, I don't, maybe I've asked one, I don't know if I've actually asked anybody if hey, let's get coffee, because it's like, but to your point, what I was getting at earlier, it's like, I'm open to the experience, but like, in changing the way I think, I'm trying to do as you're saying, like, not place limitations or be like, okay, this could go this way. I don't want to be taken advantage this way and that. It's like letting go of that, like, stories that I may have heard or narratives that might have been drummed up, and be like, okay, let me be clear in who I am, what I'm about, and kind of let that go before me, and not bring baggage to be like, like, okay, like, is this person of this or is this person of that? And that's why the coffee thing kind of came up to my mind, because it's like being able to sit in a casual setting right next to somebody. It's like you can kind of tell, like, is this somebody that, are they having a bad day? Are they conversational? And it's like every day isn't going to be, it's, that's another thing that I've kind of learned. It's like some people are more high energy than others, but like we all go through life, and you, it's not a good idea to judge someone necessarily off of one interaction, because there's no telling, like, if you're really going through like a bad bout of depression, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with you because like your extra baggage." It's like, Jesus, like,
Yeah.
who made you God? And like,
Yeah.
that's not something fun to tell to someone. But I think in the past I'd like,
You told people that?
no, no. I think I may have done the reverse, where it's like if I was going through something and I was needing to navigate it, like I've gone
Mhm.
through and like worked with a good friend to get counseling and to like talk on a monthly basis, like weekly basis, and really like talk things through. But I don't want to place that on someone, because like looking at victim mentality, rescuers, persecutors, like I don't want to operate kind of in that cycle. And I've seen myself in different um places in that little triangle, so to speak, and just seeing that where I can do better or where I cannot. And
Where
that's
you can
another thing that,
improve,
huh?
like where you could just constantly improve
Yeah, well, I
because
mean, it's like there's constantly improving, but then there's also like through the constant improvement, like from engineering school, it's like we're just you're taught to work, you know how to think and this and that, but
yeah,
sometimes you just need to be able to take a break, be spontaneous,
absolutely.
and just like enjoy life. So it's like,
Not everything is calculated.
right,
Not
right,
everything has to be calculated.
right.
And most recently, my favorite go-to phrase is just like, not everything has to make sense. Like
Mhm.
sometimes it just doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
but it still works.
right.
And I think as engineers, it's hard for people to accept that because like 2 + 2 has to equal 4.
But
And it's
everything isn't always a 2 + 2 type thing.
no, it's not. No, it's not. And I think the sooner I realized that, the more I just allowed life to be.
Mhm,
A lot of people will like think of the negatives associated with any decision
mhm.
made, right?
Yeah,
There's always pros and there are always cons.
yeah.
My logic for I think everyone who knows me, my life changed dramatically last year, like
Mhm,
dramatically. And they're like, Christen, like you really spoke this up. Like, what really happened? Like, how did you do this? And to be completely honest, I have tunnel vision whenever I want to do something. And if I want to do it, it will get accomplished, like, absolutely will get accomplished. I
mhm,
don't think there is anything that I cannot accomplish. There are things that I know my bandwidth about, and like I know that I probably won't attain it if I continue to like, be lackadaisical and inconsistent
mhm,
because I'm introspective. I know those things about me. But if I really want something, if I tell somebody and they don't have anything good to say, I will stop talking to you.
mhm,
Like there's nothing for us to talk about. Um, because you're going to disrupt my tunnel,
mhm.
my tunnel vision. And I cannot do that and I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Um, Last year, I met my husband, we got married. I got a great job at Google as a
Mm,
recruiter. To be completely honest, I was only recruiting for like half a second before I got that job.
mm,
And when I got the call to interview there, I wasn't going to tell anybody because I was like, I don't have time for people to tell me that, girl, what do you even know about recruiting?
mm.
Even though obviously I was a recruiter, but it was just like, this is the big dogs. Like, what do you know?
Right.
And I I slowly eased into the conversation with just my like prayer warriors, people who I knew had just like the best intentions for me and didn't see me falling short of like succeeding in these interviews. Like
Mm,
people who had more faith than I did
mhm,
about my ability to do things. I only spoke to those people and I only told those people about my interviews.
mm,
Until I got the job, that's when I like disclosed it to other people in my circle. But Like when it comes to like certain things and certain decisions you make, you have to know yourself as it
Mhm.
relates to that decision. And you also have to know like who's in your corner about it, because you have to be able to rely on people to hold you accountable, but also people to support you when you can't support yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't have those people in your corner, it's going to be harder to make like real decisions on your own, because sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And that's great advice because and when we're talking about like being on the dating scene, for me it's been one of those like recent things, kind of looking at it like, do I try this out or where do I go from here? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
in either being in a relationship or just trying to see where it may or may not go. And then when it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go the way you want, you just you need to process it, but also be willing to dust yourself off and go forward. And like you're saying, having that
Those
the
people.
prayer warriors in your and
Yeah.
it helps a lot because like especially being around a group of men that I met, I think is like since 2017. So
Mm-hmm.
that's close to 5 years now that I've been in contact with them. And it's like I've been in sometimes, off sometimes, but like just even being able to have like conference calls or like develop one-on-one relationship with
Mm-hmm.
healthy men that are
Mm-hmm.
not just spiritual but like realistic in life,
Mm-hmm.
and that like I can tell you when life is good, like
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. When life is bad, like still learn to enjoy the lessons that you're getting and
Mm-hmm.
don't try to sugarcoat too many things. But it was funny as I was like just tossing some things in my head, like asking some questions, like being engineering or introspective, kind of like we can be. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the guys was like, "Are you dating?" And it's like, "Nah, I don't really know what I'm doing." It's like, "What you need to do is go out and date." And I was like, "Okay." And then I and then talking with my mentor, we're going through a session. He's like, "I really wish you would get out and date." And I was like, "Okay,
I'm telling
got it,
you, I tell
got it."
everybody that first and foremost. Like that is, I think as we get older, that is a very valuable experience,
Yeah,
dating. Like you dating people, like random people, different kind, teaches you how dating taught me how to interview well, because I'm like, that's basically what it is. You
yeah,
have to know how to catch someone's attention, have
mhm,
a conversation, tell them about yourself, and tell them about yourself in a convincing manner, but
mhm,
not like, oh my gosh, I'm so amazing, but just
right,
like be realistic about who
yeah,
you are. I think I tell everybody when they're having like any kind of life struggles and they're single,
mhm,
date, like go on a date, go on a random date,
yeah,
like, and don't expect anything out of it. Just go for yourself to have fun.
yeah,
Even if the person is trash, know how to have your own fun in the
yeah,
company of someone else, whether they're just like weird or not.
yeah.
Um, and then, you know, it's another experience to just add to your storybook.
But the thing that's funny about that is that when you mention like going out on dates and going just like making fun, because it's like even as I know obviously podcasting isn't dating, but like talking to different people and
It is
actually
kind
actually
of.
like actually paying attention to someone, it's like
Yeah.
it like there's always something interesting about someone, and unless somebody's like just has a strange energy about them, it's like they usually go along pretty well. And
Yeah.
the thing that you said that just caught my attention, it's like not stressing or trying to formulate like this perfect self, because even in like interviewing for a job after working with one company 6 years out of college, and then you're like, ooh, do I do this again? Like, do I? It's like sometimes it could almost feel like you're like a hooker on a street corner, just be like, "Hey, here's my resume." Like,
Basically.
it's like, I know these things, but it's like when you or when I built up the confidence, like the self-talk and understanding, like I'm confident in these things, like I'm studying for this, I'm practicing, like it's not just
Mhm,
the memorization of all the textbook knowledge or like here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. It's like, no, it's the actually learning to live life and actually
mhm,
be more of myself and even getting to know myself. I'm like, okay, the walls kind of come down as
mhm,
to what I think I need to be. Like the more I'm myself, like it's not difficult to say like, hey, this is who I am. This
mhm.
is what I'm about. And if I'm not clear on it, I can just take a moment and pause, maybe cut a joke or just sit quietly
Yeah,
because it's like as you were asking me the question about dating, I was like, I answered it, but then I'm like,
you didn't answer it at the same time.
right.
I
And
agree.
then as I come back to it, I'm like, I'm okay with that now because I don't it's not an engineering exam. Like I don't need to be always precise. Like if I mess up or if I get it wrong, I can be like, maybe that's not what I meant. And then it's like if the words just don't align, I'm like, I don't know. Like I'll figure it. I'm willing to figure it out though. But it's like
Yeah,
not needing to always be right has been a huge weight off my shoulders where I'm like, okay, I understand. Yes. I
mhm,
also believe in roles where it's like, okay, this is what I'm best at. This is what you're best at. But like, let's work to make this
mhm.
work together. Like, I
Yeah,
don't want to this is like a strange thing. It's like you hear people talk about like, oh, this person's like a queen, a king, a this or that. It's like kind of putting people up on
on a
pedestals.
pedestal. Mhm,
It almost creates um it can create problems later because I feel like you should I do want to admire someone, but I don't want to admire them so much so that they can't make mistakes or that like the moment something goes wrong, it's like, oh, you were supposed to be. It's like, yes, there's a standard that you're held to, but like,
mhm.
I can't,
Yeah,
I don't want to expect you to do for me what I need to do for me. Like, I need to be responsible. I
yeah,
trust that you can also be responsible. And
yeah,
together, like you were saying, where we don't agree, let's have real conversations and kind of work through it rather than
yeah.
just like, like forget that person. Like they're not doing they're not doing what I want. Like I'm
I'm
just
not
gonna
gonna
go
lie, I am
right.
like that, and I can be a brat sometimes. But like logically, because yesterday I was talking to my sister and cousins about this. I'm like, I think I'm a very logical person. In my therapy session, my my therapist is like, you seem to have it all together, but you just have to like streamline it. Because the thing about it is I I know what the proper decisions are,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
sometimes I just want to be immature and I just don't want to do the proper
Yeah.
thing. I want to throw a tantrum and I will do just that. But I shouldn't at
Mhm.
my big age. I should not be throwing tantrums. I should be communicating.
Mhm.
So you saying that just now about, placing people on a pedestal and then they fall short. And then like, instead of like, oh my gosh, well, you're not the person I thought you were. I
Mhm.
kind of, I have that response sometimes with my husband when I know I shouldn't, because he
Mhm.
really is an awesome person. But I'm just like, I don't want to be, a wise person right now. I just want to be I just want to
I
be
just want to play
Kristen.
in the slop. I just want to roll around. It's like
Exactly.
I just want to be
But
messy right now, but it's like
basically,
I
and
know better.
childish.
I know better.
But I'm learning, and even like you saying that now, I just think it resonates with me so well because I do have to, be a little bit more graceful, give
Mm.
people grace, not just in like everybody in my immediate circle. Because I think out of everyone my siblings know, they think I'm just like the biggest tantrum thrower. And I like my way, how I like my way.
Yeah.
I'm nice about it, but I'm like, I will just be gone. If I have a
Mm,
car, I'm gone. Like, I'm not about to sit and argue with anybody.
mm,
I just exit, which
yeah.
is not appropriate.
But even to what you're saying about like, I always find it funny when people just say, "Oh, you just got to communicate." It's like there's different ways of communicating. You can have a
Definitely,
full-blown argument, you can have passive aggressive
definitely.
communication where
Yeah.
nothing's being said and it's like, "Oh, I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about because we had this conversation when you weren't paying attention." And now it's like
Hmm.
it's like
It's
a,
true.
a true communication. I feel like it's being able to address conflict and address it in a way to where you don't pit the other person to lose, because at the end of the day you don't want to be connected to a loser. So it's like, if the intent is so much about winning in the exchange, it's like, yeah, you won, your
You
partner
didn't win.
lost.
Yeah,
Where
you
does
didn't
that
win. And
place you?
actually, my cousin said it yesterday, just like that. And it's like, once you make, once you have these conversations out of ego, you're not going to win. Like, you
Mm,
cannot put your ego at the forefront of any disagreement
mm,
or, profound moment of communication. You have to leave your ego at the door, and you
yeah.
have to have a conversation that's respectful and kind. And I will say, that is what I appreciate about my relationship.
Mm,
For the most part, it is a very we're quick to have a conversation about things we disagree on,
mm,
and then we'll resolve it, which I think it's really healthy. I was raised up with healthy relationships around me, I feel. So communication was always well, I won't say always, because my parents did fight sometimes.
mm,
But I think they were always respectful to each other, and they always instilled in us that it was necessary to be respectful towards people and
mm,
use your words. Like, that's what
yeah.
words are for. Use the proper words.
Yeah.
I don't curse. I don't ever expect anyone to curse at me, because you lost me at that
Yeah.
point. Completely
Some
lost
people
me.
can curse you without cursing you. They're very
True.
strategic.
True. That's very true. I
Because
don't do
somebody might be like,
that.
"Oh, I never hit anybody, like, I was never physically abusive," but it's like,
It's like, you
you
can use
kinda
your words to
it's
abuse.
like, you got some body blows with those words, so it's
Yeah,
not just, like,
absolutely.
leaving, like, physical marks on people. It's like, no, like, just if you don't check what you're saying, like, that affects people, and
Yeah.
making fun of somebody for them not being able to take it or something like that might be another one of those of,
Mhm.
like, maybe they do need to mature, but at the same time, maybe, like, a conversation can be had about that. And like, even to that point, like knowing to distinguish, like, not back to the pedestal thing, not making someone your everything, to where it's like, okay, if you need a doctor, there's doctors for that. If you need a therapist, there are therapists for that. If you
Yeah.
need like
Yeah. A
something else, it's
carpenter. Yeah,
right,
carpenter.
right. But it's like having
Yeah,
dialogue over like what's needed, and being able to negotiate to where it's like, okay, how do we both win? Because it's like, if we
I
both
agree.
win, and for me it's like saying this now, it's like it's clarifying in my mind, but I'm trying
Mhm.
not to like do a lab experiment over here on the side, and it's like, you got to go out in the real world and see if this actually works. Because
Yeah.
otherwise it's like, oh, I'm a guru today, and it's like, oh man, like, 0 and 10 on dates, like, just try again. But it's like, hey, you fail, but you
Yeah,
learn and you try again and you try
yeah.
again.
In order to really be great at something or do something well, I think you just have to do it time and time again.
Mm,
Like, practice makes, I don't know if I would say practice makes perfect, because it's like perfect practice makes perfect, but
yeah.
practice makes better.
I've
So,
I've heard
like,
someone say practice makes permanent, which that's
I get, you have to keep practicing though
right.
for it to be permanent.
It has to be
But I
consistent.
think, Yeah, there you go. You have to be really consistent in things, because even though now that I have a job, I tell people, because I'm in the employment, or I'm in the business of employment.
Mhm.
I tell people I talk to, like even if they're happy on their job, I think they should continue interviewing for other jobs just to make sure they don't lose that skill.
Mm.
Um, I think interviewing is a very interesting. And I actually, now that I think about it, I think there is a correlation of people I know
Mhm.
who don't really date. They're single, they don't really date often, and they
Mhm.
don't interview well. There's a
Mm.
correlation between the
Yeah, I
two.
think I see it now because it's like you're comfortable with what you know, and then you don't
Yeah,
refine the skills that really show who you are. So then it's like when you go to
exactly.
talk to someone, it's like you built up all this pressure being like, can I still do this? Am I worthy? Am I like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, when it comes to dating, I don't know, are you gonna get back out there, Asher? Are you gonna
yeah,
throw yourself out there?
yeah, I'm gonna
Uh,
go here's what I'm gonna do.
tell me what you're doing.
So I'm gonna move from where I am right now and move. I'm renting. Well, I'm going to continue to rent, but I'm going to move closer to the college campus where I'm at to kind of be in the environment around other people.
Where do
And
you
then
live?
South Georgia, Valdosta.
You live in Valdosta now,
Yeah, yeah,
and you are saying you're going to move closer to the college campus,
yeah.
Valdosta State,
Mhm.
to date
Mm,
college students?
I don't know. Well, I mean, college student is like a wide range, but like,
It is a wide range, but whether they are young or old,
mhm,
are people in the college. I feel like this is just my opinion. Can I share my
mhm.
opinion?
Of
Like,
course,
before
of
I
course.
just am so opinionated. It's an opinion about what you plan on doing.
Mhm,
So I don't want to interrupt that.
mhm.
Because you're moving to Valdosta. Are you moving to Valdosta or closer to Valdosta State just to be more social, or there are other opportunities there?
Well, I'd say more to be social. I've been in Valdosta 1 year now, and
Hmm.
where I'm at, it's more isolated. Everyone's kind of got their own house and family base, but one, it would be a financial move to kind of downsize and um,
Hmm.
save significantly. And then two, I think it would help me to not only socialize, but also be able to maneuver to things that are like close by. It's like,
Closer.
okay, you can go here, you can go there. And it's like,
Okay, that makes sense.
being around people. It's not so I'm not moving just to date. It's
Okay,
I'm
that makes
moving
sense.
I'm
I mean,
moving
even if you were, I just
right,
wanted clarity on that. That's
right,
fine
right.
if that was your plan. How did you get to Valdosta? Do you have a job there? Are you remote
Yeah.
and you just decided to live there, or?
No, so a friend of mine that I went to school with at Tech, we graduated, well, he graduated a semester before me, but he's from around this area and he does soils engineering. So he reached out to me last year and was asking me if I was looking to do something else in engineering because I took a little bit of a break and they've been pretty busy here, like doing a lot of pre-construction work. Basically,
Mhm.
you go out, you I said soil because some people might get offended if you say dirt, but basically it's like it's almost like you play in dirt and you're supposed to categorize it and based on the type of dirt or soil that you have, you
That's really cool. I heard
yeah.
about that, and I heard about that on another podcast. I think it was Earn Your Leisure. They had
Mm,
somebody who was like a commercial developer, and
mhm.
they would talk about, and I was like, is there really you have to hire people to really understand the soil
Yep.
and
You
how
know
much, I
what?
guess,
You
pressure it
remember what
can,
happened in Florida with that
yeah, with
big
the
high-rise
building.
building? Like you have something that happens like that, somebody's head's getting put on the platter on Front
That
Street.
is
It's like,
really
who
interesting.
did
So you
this?
know how to measure the strength of soil or something? Is that
Mhm.
it?
Yeah.
That's
Like a
interesting.
lot of it, it's like you're measuring the density, the unit weight. You look at how much water, like the amount of water in the material and the type of material it is will affect
Mhm.
what it can support. So, like, if you have areas that are really clayey, tend to hold water a lot, and they can
Mhm.
have like settlement, like drastic settlements over time. And
Interesting.
other areas, you might have how sinkholes kind of form if you
Yeah.
like get all these pockets of voids, or I think I said the same thing twice. A void pocket's basically anything that's empty, but like there's different levels to it. And obviously, like, you have guys on the front lines that do the physical labor of like digging down and getting out the soil. It can
Mhm.
be sand, it can be clay, and other times it'll be rock. Like this past weekend, we went up like just north of Atlanta by like an hour or so.
Mhm.
And up there it was the cleanest rock I've ever seen, where it's like we dug straight down 5 to 10 feet and we just pulled a 5 to 10 foot rock cylinder straight out of
Oh,
the ground.
wow.
It's like, oh, that's amazing. Like 2 weeks before we went and we were trying to do the same thing. Like you need a 10-foot sample, and it's like probably 5 or 7 feet of it washed away just because it was just really brittle
Oh,
material. And like
wow.
those two locations are 40 minutes from each other, but it's just like the geology
Difference.
completely changes. But
So let me ask you, when it
mhm,
comes to how far you have to dig down to kind of test,
mhm.
what determines how far down you have to go? How high they plan on building, or how, like, what they plan on
More
putting
than
there?
likely, it's how high they plan on installing something. So, like, power poles that you see on the side of the road, like the really giant ones, they might go down, like a good 40 feet.
Oh,
But
wow.
then,
What
like,
about water tanks? Like water tanks?
mm, I'm not sure about water tanks, but, like, a lot of like, to your point, a lot of what determines how deep you go is how tall you build it, and also, like, what kind of weight is going to be on it. Like, an apartment complex might just be, like, 20 feet, and then, like, a road or something like that might just be 5 feet because you're not gonna disturb a lot of the soil. So, all depending on where you're at, what's gonna be in there, like, an emergency building or
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, an emergency room may have to have like a deeper foundation just because they've got specialized equipment in there and like
And it's heavy.
elevators and things like that. Yeah. And it's got to
Okay.
just support that over time.
Okay. So when you're digging
Mhm,
and they plan on building things on top,
mhm,
you're digging in one space,
mhm.
but how far out do you have to go? Because it changes, doesn't it?
Right, right. So usually the way they do it is basically you're digging about where your foundations would be. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like based on what it is, like usually you'd get like the if you're building a building, you'd maybe put like one or two in the corners. It also depends on like a budget, because if you work in an area a lot, you have a good sense of like what you've done there before. So like if we're in a shopping center, for instance, and say
Mm-hmm.
we built a Dunkin' Donut over here. Now they want to build a smoothie shop over here, or they want to build a gym over there. It's like if you've done 3 or 4 of those, you kinda have an idea of what's going on, and then
Mm-hmm.
where they're going to have their foundations in the corners of the building, and depending on, like, if the elevation's lower on this part of the land, or, like, if this sits up higher, you might
Mm-hmm.
dig a little bit deeper just to make sure that you get down low enough to where they're gonna cut the soil and kind of make it uniform throughout.
That's really interesting. So we built a pergola in our backyard,
What is that?
and so it's kind of like it's like a, what do you call it? Like a gazebo kind of.
Okay, gotcha. Right, right, right.
So it was my husband Monday and my cousin and my sister's boyfriend, and they built it and they dug like 5 feet down the ground. But like in one of the corners, there was this rock and they
Mhm,
couldn't get like all the way down.
mhm.
So would rock be more supportive of materials than, like, I guess the other four corners?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, so long as that rock is like solid. And I mean, for something like that, it wouldn't be too intense because what is it? When you dig, a lot of times, if you're still in Georgia or like any other state, they say
Yeah, we're still here.
um, you call like the 811 number just to make sure that you're not going to dig into any utilities. Because say if you dig down
Oh,
somewhere, it,
wow. I didn't know that was a thing.
yeah.
Shoot, and we're here digging. We didn't call 811.
But it's usually really helpful, like, if you're in the right of way near the road, because, like, people have, like, cable lines there, telephone lines, fiber, gas. Some neighborhoods may have, like, gas lines running through there, so it's like, you don't wanna just go digging in the ground because
No,
especially if you're anywhere near, a gas line, it's like, that might be the last "deep," and then oof. But
that would be crazy. Okay,
yeah.
so basically you shouldn't do any digging until you do call the 811 number.
Yes. Or it's a good precaution.
Okay,
Yeah.
so even in like the residential neighborhoods, because they will
Especially
still
in
have
residential neighborhoods because it's like, well,
the houses have gas lines.
right. But I mean, unless you're clear on where your utilities are, it's good to have someone come out because I don't think they would charge you for coming out and doing that service. They're being paid by the state, and that's like a service that has to be maintained and upkept. And it's like you can do it online or you can just call the number physically.
I did not know that. Learn something new every day.
Well, I just happened to learn that over this past year because it's like
Your industry.
the thing that I found very interesting about civil engineering, whether it's like you've got the structures folks, the architects kind of come in there with structures to actually build to say like, hey, this is the vision of what we want. And then from there, you
Mhm.
have the environmental engineers that get involved and they're like, okay, what impact is this going to have on the environment? Are you going to take away this? Are you going to take away that? And then
So
they'll
cool.
ask a soils person like, hey, what is this sufficient material to build on? Like, is there rock? Is there sand? Like, will these
That
loads
is
be
really
supported?
cool.
And
To be
then,
honest,
yeah.
when I went to college, I started with civil engineering.
Mhm.
I wanted to become a civil engineer.
Yeah.
It was short-lived because I actually started school
Yeah.
and those classes did
Which
not seem too exciting.
which ones got you?
Honestly, it was the physics. It was the
Mm.
calc-based physics that I would have to like power through, and I was struggling. Like once I got to algebra 2, I mean calculus 2,
Yeah.
I was just like, absolutely, I don't get this. I ended up changing my major so many times in college because like every major I chose had all these classes that I just could not do.
Well, you did pick an engineering school, but the thing that's funny about that, it's like physics was also difficult for me, and for math, I think I started with pre-algebra and worked my way
Mm,
all the way to
to
linear
calc.
algebra at
Mm,
SPUSU and doing like differential equations. But like the thing that always came through was like finding a group of friends, which was like one or two other people that were
mhm,
willing to like do the homework or like you watch and you're like, okay, like I guess I wasn't too I wasn't against asking for help. So like even if someone was
mm.
strange or just different from me, I'd be like, hey, we might not look the same, but like you seem to work hard. Like
Let's
I
do
want to
this.
work hard too. Like I'll pull my weight, you pull your weight, like we come together and we work through that. And it's like just some of those classes felt like I don't know, calculus 2 for sure. Calculus 2 and physics
Yeah.
1, that combination was just like, what is going on? Is this
Yeah.
hieroglyphics?
Yeah, it is actually.
But then it's like you had resources like once I started finding out about like it's not cap it's Khan Academy,
Oh, I used
guys
to use Khan Academy all the
guys like
time.
that.
He
And
was
then
great.
you have like I think I just happened to have like a super genius in my class or something. And it's like a buddy of mine befriended him that I met because like going to
Mhm.
SPUSU was it was such a small school. And I was like
Intimate, yeah.
coming from a small town, going to like a school that's a
Big,
little bit
yeah.
bigger, but like you're just able to talk to people and nobody
Yeah.
feels like they're big up because they're like, hey, we're
Yeah.
excited to be in college, we're learning this stuff. Somebody else would be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I've got job experience and this person knows this and that person knows that. And I was like, okay, well, hang out with this
Mhm.
person. And then some people
Yeah.
you find out are just full of it because they just talk a lot, but they never
No
like
action.
they never
Yeah.
produce anything. It's like, okay, dude, I'm not hanging out with you. I'm gonna hang out with my little weird group. Like
Yeah.
we'll stay in touch. I tried to hang out with the cool kids a little bit, but then I kind of had to check myself at the end of it, be like, hey,
Yeah. School
sorry,
comes first. Yeah.
I
School comes
got big
first.
headed. I tried to go with that group, didn't really work. Can I come back in with our group? They're like, okay, sure. It's all love. It's all love.
That's funny. I think like then, I don't know if YouTube was as big as it is now,
Mhm.
but I think had I like really explored YouTube, I mean, I guess it was because that's how I like passed like a lot of those math classes,
Mm.
but I don't know. I think there's just more videos on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
So I think
most
I
definitely.
I think I could have powered through it had I had like YouTube University really at the forefront because it could
Yeah.
have helped.
Well, it's funny because I think I started 2008 fall,
Mhm.
and I think I transferred 2011 and then finished
At Georgia
2013.
Tech.
And
Mhm.
it's like within that time, I think other resources had come up like Coursera and even
Oh, yeah.
seeing like I remember somebody when I transferred and then I moved off college before I think I met my friend and then he told me about, hey, there's housing off campus because when you go from Marietta and you move to Atlanta, it's like prices go up a bit. And it's like
Oh,
you
yeah.
gotta live on campus for like your first semester, even if you're a transfer student. And it's like,
Oh, really? I didn't
ooh,
know that. That's
well,
pricey.
maybe I don't maybe I should rephrase that. Maybe I didn't have to, but it's like I thought that
Recommended.
would have been like the better option. Like you're coming into this place for the first time, stay here for a year, like just kind of get to know where you're going, meet some people. Again, like that seems to be a common theme. Like go where people are and don't isolate yourself too much to where you can communicate and like converse with people. Did I lose you?
Did I lose
There
you?
you are.
I was like, what's happening?
I just saw your face freeze for a moment and I was
Yeah.
like, I'll keep talking and then she'll pop back in.
It said my connection was unstable, then I couldn't hear you. So I was like,
Gotcha.
oh no. But I'm back.
Yeah. But what were you saying?
Being at Georgia Tech and getting
Yeah.
familiar
Yeah.
and
Just getting familiar with the campus was a cool thing. And then really just connecting with other
mhm,
transfer students because like some of the students that went there for like all their 4 years or 5 years or whatnot could be
they're
cool, but
stuck up. They're
other
stuck up.
people were kind of stuck up or like you didn't put in the time that I did. You didn't suffer like
Basically.
we did. And I was like, I get it. Like
I can see
I
that
wouldn't
too.
want to take because they had this thing where it's like you were supposed to take calculus 2 and linear algebra in the same 4 month semester. So like in the time that it took us to do one of those over 4 months, they were doing calculus
Too.
2 in two
And
months
linear.
and linear algebra in 2 months. And it's like,
Sounds
oh, you
stressful.
guys just that. But like you had very smart people, stuck up
Yeah.
people. Like you have all it's like a nice melting pot because it's like you have all kinds of people in college and like you get
You do.
it kind of shows you what you're going to see in the world and it really it opens your eyes. But the thing that I appreciated about the other transfer students is like they came in with different experiences and even meeting
Mhm.
people that had worked and then came back to college. I always
Yeah.
appreciated them because like I got to work a semester and then go back and like
Yeah.
spending time with them. Like I remember someone telling me at my co-op, they're like, um, yeah, you don't want to come back as an engineer here because you're gonna be at a cap. And I was like,
Oh, I think I was listening to your podcast and you mentioned, I was listening to an episode, you mentioned that they said you're not going to get paid like what you need to
yeah.
be paid.
And and the thing that made it resonate was that is somebody that I knew, and it was someone that was an engineer. So he's like speaking from experience, and I was like, that makes sense. I should probably listen to that. And after
Yeah.
like the beauty of the co-op was like you work for a semester, you go back, and then you work for a semester and you go
Yeah, you
back
go
and you
back.
work. And it's like you basically spend a year working with the same company. And the thing that was
Mhm,
interesting for me, it's like I enjoyed my parts of the experience. And the thing that was very telling at the end of it was like, oh, like from when you started to when you ended, unless you really begged for like a raise or like a bump or something, it's like,
mhm,
no, we just keep like you don't if it's literally like if you don't ask for what you want, you don't get it. And what's that's kind of taught
yeah.
me about life is like you can't just sit on your hands and just be like, oh, I just be a hard worker and sincere and just hope life kind of falls in my lap. It's like
Doesn't work like that.
it doesn't
Definitely.
work like that. And it's like you can't go around blaming the world and be like, oh, they should have. It's like, no, you have to learn to stand for yourself and also
Yeah,
get around people that will stand up for you to where you can speak up for
yeah.
them. Because it's like if we just keep going through life expecting, oh, I deserve this or I deserve, it's like you don't deserve anything,
No, life
especially in
is
America. It's
hard.
like
Yeah, like you gotta work and
right,
close mouths and get fed.
right. And I keep up with mixed martial arts, and I watch like a lot of reporters kind of interview people and they'll talk about the fighters and this and that. And a lot of times they talk about the UFC mainly because it's the biggest promotion or whatnot. And they'll talk about like, oh, merit. If we really cared about merit, like this person should get, they really deserve this, or like they should really. And it's like the
Do
more
they
and more I
deserve
hear that word,
anything?
I'm like,
Who deserves
even
anything?
even like in fist fighting, like where people will get bludgeoned with their fists, their feet, their kicks, everything like that, knees, like shins. It's like there's there's no like if you're not entertaining, if you're not putting butts in seats, you don't deserve anything. And it's like even
Yeah,
when you do, unless you have some like high potential of leverage, it's like do not be so like confused or like somebody that might be well-meaning be like, oh hey, you're gonna get this. And it's like when you don't get it, it's like, but you said, it's like they were well-meaning, but they didn't really have any control over that. So you
yeah,
can't stake everything on that.
yeah, I agree with that entirely. And the thing about deserving things, people love to say people deserve. I don't know if anybody really deserves anything, whether it be good or bad, because life life is hard. And everyone is just powering through in the best way they know how. People
Yeah.
are coming from different walks of life. They've endured different traumas. They're just like trying to survive here. So, I mean, sometimes it works out great for some
Mhm.
people. Their decisions align very well. Sometimes people make great decisions and still don't get to where they want to be in life.
Mm.
And like, what is the explanation there? Like, what is the explanation as to why someone doesn't achieve something or a certain level when they work very hard for it and
Mhm.
they have a good attitude about it? And then you look over here where it looks like someone is just coasting through life and they're not a nice person, but they just keep. You ever watched the movie Ted, like the teddy bear movie?
I
um I
I
just
saw clips
remember,
of it.
yeah, I don't think I watched the whole movie and paid attention from beginning to end, but
Mhm.
I do know in that movie it was this teddy bear and he was just like a terrible worker and
Yeah.
he would constantly get promoted in the movie. And it's like I always wonder and make that correlation to that, like that in real life, because
Mhm.
you do see some people who seem to just be skating by.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I will say that that person doesn't deserve like their achievements, even if they're skating by. It's like, life just seems to be working for them.
Yeah.
And what can we do about it? And I won't say that someone is undeserving if they're in that
Right, right.
position, but I do have some empathy towards people who do work very hard, like in school, in their level of employment,
Mhm.
in their relationships, and they don't attain the things they desire. Sometimes
Mm.
I just think they need to be a little bit more bold. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not getting something on a job, leave the job. If you're
Mm.
not getting something in your relationship, if you're married, it's a little different. You got to be more flexible there.
Yeah.
But if you're just dating, move on.
Well,
Um,
it's funny about that because I was having a conversation with some friends this morning, and like someone pointed out, there's a difference between being aggressive and being assertive. And it's like, especially when we talk
right.
about people that are um hard workers, like diligent, but then they're not getting what it is that they feel they may deserve, is that sometimes you have to be trained to be more assertive. Like,
I
and
agree.
the way they broke it down was like, you need to know who you are, like
I
having an
agree.
understanding of who you are, like what you do, what it is that you actually want, and being like being bold to state that, but also being not just logical, but being clear on what it is. Because it's like when you present to someone, like, hey, here's the value I bring, and here's how I go about doing it.
Mhm.
If you can not only communicate that to your employer or to your significant other or something like that, it's like it it lets people know like this is the value of the person that I have. And if you're finding, to your point, like if you find yourself with someone that doesn't value that or doesn't care, it's best to test the market, because then it's like someone that can see that what you're presenting quite clearly and that you're very consistent at, they'd be a fool not to get it. And then the
Yeah,
person
and
that's
it's
kind of gotten comfortable is just like, oh, that's Johnny over there, he just works like every because they say like, what is it, either it's like the 80-20 rule, like 20% of the people do 80% of the
80%
work,
of the work.
and it's
Mhm.
like 20% of the people have 80% of the wealth, or it might be like 90-10 or something like that. But it's like, it's
That's
not a
true.
thing to say. Somebody could frame it very well and just be like, well, life is going to be like this, it's always been like this. And it's like money trades hands, but it's like you've got to know the game that you're playing and why you're playing it. Because it's like
Absolutely.
if you don't realize that you're in a game that you're playing it, the thing that kind of blew my mind finishing up my co-op and kind of making the decision to say, okay, instead of going this route, I'm going to do something different, like listening to motivation like Eric Thomas, and like getting involved with his community and whatnot after college,
Mhm.
but like listening to things that help me kind of rewire my mind and ask really ask questions of myself. Because I can remember this, and I feel like I'll forever remember this, where it was like I was cleaning boiler tubes, and it's like this had to be spring semester. So I think it's like January, up like 120 feet in the air when we're working off the scaffolding, and I'm sitting here cleaning boiler tubes, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I'm not arrogant. I think I'm smart. I go to one of the top engineering colleges in the world, and I'm cleaning boiler tubes. There's nothing wrong with cleaning these boiler tubes, but it's like, if
I don't
this is
wanna
what
do
I graduate to
this.
have a degree for, to spend all this money, to take on all this debt, it's like, am I being honest about like my capacity or what it is that I really want to do? And it's like from having that conversation and looking at how I could go about doing things differently, I thought for a minute, like, okay, well, if I don't want to come back here, I want to pursue a job that would actually help me see the world, like pursue engineering that would give me a competitive salary or something of that sort. I was like, who do I
Mhm.
know that's already done that? And a good friend of mine, someone that I met, I think she was one of the first people that I met once I was on the tech campus. We had a class together, and again, forming study groups from that. And it's like, okay, hey, you seem like you get this. Maybe I could
Mhm.
use help on this. Let's go grab lunch and work through these problems. And I knew her to be someone that would every semester, every summer, she'd be working with like the top engineering companies. Like, oh, okay, I wanted to do this co-op.
Mhm.
Um, okay, that one I didn't like it so much. I'm gonna go try this one. It's just like she would say,
So
I want
she
to work
aligned
here.
herself.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
like when I asked her, like, hey, how are you able to do that? Could you help me? She was like, sure. Like, here's documents. Like, I have a family member that's a recruiter. So it's like here are the questions that they would ask you, and here's how they expect you to answer it. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like all I had to do is ask. But it's like after I asked, I for the fall semester, strategize like, here are the 20, 25, 30 companies that are coming to campus, because that was the other benefit of going to tech. It's like there's over 400 engineering companies coming to talk to all of the engineers, and it's like they're major specific. But then also in the spring semester, you would have we had our own like civil engineering where like 30 or so would come, and it's
Like
like,
a career fair?
yeah.
Mm.
So we had a spring career fair, and then we had a fall career fair. But the thing,
Mhm.
like during that time of me asking those questions, I went to the spring career fair because we basically worked on call, and whenever we didn't have a job out of town, you
Mhm.
could be just at home kind of hanging out. So I was like, oh, I'll go help out. I talked to a company there, and they're like, I was like, oh, I'm not graduating this semester, but I'm graduating next semester. They're like, okay, cool, we'll be back. And then exchanging with them in the fall, and also like for the first time ever, I was so proud of myself. I missed a class, and I was like, I'm not going to class. I'm going to get somebody else's notes, but I'm going to go get a
Get
job,
this
which is what I'm
job.
here for. And it's like, I think somebody had told the professor, because he was like, where is so and so? And it's like, oh, he's at the career fair. And they're like, that's where you guys should be. And I was like, hey, I did
He's
something right.
being smart.
Right. But it's like, out of all of that, the company that I spoke to in the spring was the only one that gave me the offer in the fall. And I took it because I almost thought I was going to miss it, because I got
Mhm.
the offer letter over Thanksgiving. And it's like
Mhm.
I had to accept it before Christmas. So thankfully I went home for Thanksgiving and got that all signed up. But it was just like that, like getting rid for me of that, you deserve this because of like your status, like what you accomplish, what you've
Mhm.
achieved, where you come from, what you look like. It's like that doesn't do a whole lot to serve me.
No, it
And
doesn't.
like doing away with that and really embracing a mindset of like, okay, what can I do to get something better, or like what am I actually bringing to
Yeah.
bring that to myself? It's like it's
Yeah.
help.
How are you like taking full advantage of the opportunity?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel that entirely. And it's interesting that you actually, made the effort to like figure out how to make your opportunity work for you. I think a lot of people are in, pretty decent spaces,
Mhm.
and they have a pretty decent network, and they just don't know how to leverage that. Or they just don't, I won't call it lazy, they're just not inspired to do it,
Yeah.
because it might seem difficult. A lot of things seem very difficult when you're outside, when you're on the outside looking in
Mhm.
and thinking how to strategize, and then you're overwhelmed by like the possibilities and like the strategy itself. But
Mhm.
then when you just go, like I said, sometimes it doesn't have to make sense. You just make a move,
Mhm.
like things start falling into place.
Yeah.
Like for example, you couldn't have imagined that that would be the outcome from you just, going one semester when you knew you weren't graduating that semester.
Mhm.
It was the opportunity that stuck though when you were ready to graduate.
Yeah. Very true.
It's a good conversation.
Well, um,
Let me ask you. Well,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't know. I was like, maybe. Well, never mind. What were you about to say?
No, I was gonna say I'm not gonna keep you too late, but just to, what was it?
Close
Like,
out.
well, to close it out, but also to give you the opportunity, if you're doing anything online or offline that you'd want people to connect with you on, like you mentioned working in the space of employing people. Like, is there any advice or a takeaway message, or maybe like even if someone wants to reach out to you to connect, that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, so I am a recruiter for engineers, software engineers. So if anyone is interested in getting a little bit more information about the tech industry, learning about big tech firms, interviewing, streamlining a resume, definitely reach out to me. I love the conversation. I think I have a lot of intelligence behind that conversation. So reach out to me on LinkedIn
Mm.
or on Instagram.
What would you suggest, like, people that are interviewing or like considering interviewing, like you were saying, like you should put yourself out there, like what should people kind of expect, or just be open to even considering going through that interview process?
Um, what should they expect? Okay, so it is a competitive industry, and I think a lot of people are making that career transition into tech,
Mm,
whether it be front end engineering and engineering, data science, what have you. A lot of people are seeing that, there's a career in it, there's money in it,
mhm,
there's a lot of flexibility in the work-life balance, and a lot of these tech companies, especially like startup companies, they pay well,
mm,
and they're really laid back environments overall. I think people should always look into the company that they're aiming for. People are always like, oh, what should I put on my resume? How much should I ask for? And I'm
mhm,
like, you really have to do your due diligence when it comes to the specific company. There is a standard of what they may be looking at, like when it comes to tools and technologies, yes,
mhm,
but how they interview may be different.
mm,
We'll say, I am a Black woman, I'm a Black woman in tech. There are not too many Black women in tech. If you come from an underrepresented group, I think you need to give yourself an opportunity. If you feel like you're being underpaid, find a new job.
mm,
Like, I don't think there's much money coming from staying at your job and asking for a higher income, because
mm,
they know exactly how much you make now. They're not giving you like a 50% raise. They're not giving you the raise that you may be qualified for, really.
mhm,
So I think people should get out of their comfort zone and they should look for a new opportunity.
mm. And I guess to your point, like you mentioned earlier, what does that do when you actually interview for a new job, or at least put yourself out? Like what difference could that make in moving from where you're at to the other job, not just financially, but just like,
Your state of mind, your state of mind altogether. When you get, I mean, anybody who gets a job that they wanted, they
mm,
feel good about it.
mm,
You
yeah,
feel really good about it. No matter even if it's like just a lateral move, even if it's at the company you decide that you
mm,
want to work at, achieving that position when you feel like you stuck in your life, it feels really good. And it
mm,
kind of gives you a brand new slate. It's like going to a brand new state by yourself and like just creating the life you want.
mm,
Um, you go to a brand new company, it's a blank slate. You learn new things, you learn new skills. I always think also, if you want to learn new technologies, unless you're at like a, not even sometimes, like
mm,
sometimes you could be at a big tech firm and you don't get to use like certain new technologies because
mm,
maybe the company is only streamlined towards their technology.
mm,
So I think if you're in the tech industry and if you're a contract worker, usually it's healthy to, explore new roles, learn new skills. If you're in a company in the tech industry, like a retail company for like 10 years, it becomes harder for you to find a new job over
mm,
time because your skills, unless you are putting in like a 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5, you're not going to have current skills.
mm.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that helps, especially for software, because I've seen a lot of people say like learn to code and things like that. And I remember I couldn't stand coding like in college, because it could have been another one of those courses where it's like, I'm glad I'm not trying to be a computer or a software engineer, because I'm like, we just have to learn to do this. And like seeing now, whether it's like you use so much Excel or other things like that, it just having that skill to critically think, to be like, okay, if I'm going
Yeah.
to do this thing 1,000 times, is there a formula or a program I can write to have this do it for me. And it's like
No.
YouTube University. Like, how do you put a watermark
Automated.
on a PDF?
Yeah, coding is like hats off to the people who do it, because I can't imagine sitting at a computer like just writing lines and lines and lines and lines of code back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. That
But
is wild to me.
I think there's got to be some kind of excitement in it for them because it's like it's just another thrill or type of thing, and
It
it's not
is.
the technology's improved. I think to where it's not anymore of where you've got to print everything out and you like hand scan it and be like, oh, there's a semicolon here instead of a comma.
I
Like
know.
at least I don't think it's that torturous, but
I
I'm
think
not
it
as
is like in
familiar.
interviews. I think it's that basic in interviews. Like when
Mm,
you have like a whiteboard interview, or like an interview where you don't get to use like a compiler depending on what your language is, but you do have to just go back to the basics, and I just don't know how they do it.
yeah, I guess it
But I
in
tried it. I tried Java coding and I was like, this is for the birds. Like, what in the world? I guess once you make your product, like your application, and everything is running well and you see your
mhm,
outcome, it is very satisfying. I can
yeah.
imagine that. But the steps it takes to get there.
Is there anything about like the interviewing process that you think would encourage people to see the job they currently have differently
Mm,
instead of just like, let me jump ship?
mm, well, I don't think people should just jump ship for the sake of jumping ship. Like, you have to kind of make the decision as it relates to you and your life. Like, I can't tell or encourage people to move their jobs when I don't know their life. As a recruiter, that's why I do care to learn more about the candidates I speak to, because it makes more sense for me to reason with the decision of you leaving the company you're currently in. Like, now, if the job I have for you is going to require you to relocate, and you have a child in like preschool and a spouse that is, I don't know, going to school on campus somewhere, like, it's not going to make sense for me to tell you that you should come to this job over here and leave your
Right,
family.
right.
Doesn't make sense. But I can like work with you in understanding a solution and like coming to a resolution, like maybe not now, maybe in the future, maybe there's an opportunity that's remote. Maybe there is an opportunity for you. Maybe
Mhm,
it's not right now,
true.
but I can't help you unless I know like the whole story, you know?
Mm,
And some people are annoyed by recruiters. Some recruiters can be annoying. I
yeah.
agree. But again, I mean, it's kind of like a sales job. Like we recruit people.
Is there a quota you have to meet or like?
Generally, like, no, I don't think so. Well,
Mhm,
it depends. So
gotcha.
I started in the agency realm. I was an agency recruiter.
Mhm,
Agency recruiting is kind of commission based. So the more
mhm,
people you get a job, the more money you get. I'm in the corporate space now, so I get paid the same if I get 20 people hired, 60 people hired, 100 people hired.
mhm,
My income is the same. Um, but you are like your strength as a recruiter is gauged by your ability to recruit.
mhm,
Some jobs are different. If you work for a company recruiter and only job is to recruit people for jobs, then that's probably going to be your metric. But if you have a role as a recruiter where you're, you know, trying to find new accounts for
mhm,
companies that you know, fill roles for, that may be your metric.
mhm,
Maybe it's a happy median between the two. If you're in corporate space, maybe you're working directly with hiring managers. The satisfaction of your hiring managers may be a metric. I think it just depends where you work and how your day-to-day is structured.
That makes sense. I've had some recruiters reach out to me like randomly and they'll start talking about something like, "Hey, I saw you on LinkedIn and I thought you'd be good for this job." And then they keep talking and I'm like, "You didn't
That's
read
not my
any."
job.
I was like, "You didn't read anything on my
My
profile.
profile.
Like, I don't know if you're trying to meet a quota or something like that." And I was like, I try my best to be honest, like,
Yeah.
because I remember one lady had called me up and like since I've been posting little pictures for the podcast with a link to it, just because it's like it's something I do. It's not really
Mhm,
related to my work. It's I kind of keep the two separate, but I just like
mhm,
it as a good balance.
mhm.
And she'd mentioned something about like, oh, some companies don't want you to do that, but I think that's completely BS or something like that. And she just started dropping like one cuss word after another. And I'm like, okay, this is a different type of
The kind of
recruiter. And then like
recruiter.
started making all these types of promises and then started talking about like um maybe we won't get into it, but like she started
That's
talking about
fine.
these things like
Tell me.
diversity, equity, inclusion. And like when like the more I hear it, sometimes I'm like, what exactly are you saying? Like, I don't want to be a token person. Like
Like, is it because
I
I'm
was
Black?
right. I was like, don't do that. And I think it maybe speaks to when we were talking about dating. I know on my LinkedIn profile, I have like it might be I don't take a lot of personal pictures. So it was the picture that they took when I went to tech for like your ID. And it's just
Mhm,
me like in a t-shirt. Most people are on there like suit and tie or something. And I'm like,
mhm.
the kind of it goes back to my reasoning and my logical mind of being like, when I said like the coffee date or something like that, it's kind of a way to say I
Yeah.
present myself to be how
Who
I
you
am
are.
as I am, not to
You
say
take me
that
as I am.
I
Yeah.
can't dress up or like, but I tend to kind of dress down. So it's like I'm not going to give you a false perception of me to say like on my resume, I do all these things. It's like, yes, I have done these things, but without practice, like I could be completely
Not a drip.
clueless. So it's like I'm not gonna go into a situation and just be like, "Oh yeah, I've done that before." And it's like somebody reads like, "Okay, you've got 8, 10 years of experience doing," and it's like, "I did this construction experience, and here's how I write it in a paragraph, and here's how it's broken down." So it's like if you click on my page and you don't take the time to actually read, he's
You
done
don't
this
know.
for 6 years. He's done that for this. And it's like if
Yeah.
you ask me specifically, I'll tell you this is the job that I did, this was my
Yeah.
role and that. But like this other person just seemed to have these
No idea.
grand ideas of
Yeah.
like, oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. And it's like another person was like, hey, we need this job. And then I was like, okay, like here's my information. When can I call? And it's like you don't hear anything for a week or a month. And then it's like another month goes by and it's I don't know if they like if you're able to see people as they're applying for stuff, but like this recruiter, she just keep calling and reaching out to me. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I sent you message, I've sent you resume, and it's like you don't
You're
reply
still,
to
yeah.
anything and you just keep putting out the same job. I'm like, what's going on?
I think sometimes, like, when it comes to agency recruitment, it's a very high paced industry, very high paced. So if they have a job today, the job
Mhm.
may be filled tomorrow. And after they sent you a message, they sent you the message already, and then the
Right.
job is gone. And then sometimes some people are like, well, I have nothing to tell him at this point, so I'm not going to respond.
Mm.
But then the job may show back up next week. And
But
so
it's like
there,
the would the job go away
and
within like a moment of you talking to the person for like I mean, you're talking
sometimes it
like
does, because the thing is more so about the big picture from the higher ups.
mhm,
Like, as a recruiter, you're pretty much like the bottom of the totem pole in agency recruitment. You
mhm,
are employed to go find these employees for
mhm,
us. So if a manager, if say I'm the recruiter, I'm an agency recruiter, and I'm told, oh, we need to hire for this company and this company. Company A needs this kind of employee with this kind of background. Company B needs this kind of employee with this kind of background. Very similar roles, same title, but company B requires a niche skill and company A doesn't. So then the recruiter is like, okay, I'm going to recruit for both of these. And then when they get on the phone with you, like they might focus on company B with this niche skill, and they're talking to you about it, and you're like, I don't do that. Like, even though you are a data scientist and you know how to be a data scientist, you don't know how to use certain arithmetic, like statistical analysis. Like, you don't know how to do that. So why would you call me about this? And that's kind of like the issue that may arise there. It's like, you didn't read my profile at all. It's not that they didn't read the profile, it's just that they only focused on like certain words on your profile. And then they thought like, wouldn't know this, because you also have to realize recruiters are not subject matter experts in most things. And so they don't even know what half these words mean. They just see it on a resume and see it on a job description. And unless they've been recruiting in that space for a while, they don't know what these things mean. So it's like, okay, you said you know how to, I don't know. You said you knew how to do something with Python, but you don't know how to use Bayesian statistics. Well, I thought they were the same thing. But you as the professional, you're like, you sound stupid. These are not the same thing.
It's gotta suck. It's like you put the person that's not the subject matter expert, but they're basically like the frontline worker. And it's like
basically. And it's like,
they're getting abused from both sides.
Basically, because as a recruiter, if you're coming back empty-handed, it's like, what are you doing? Especially in the agency realm. If you don't have anything to show, then show something. Sometimes they will say that, just show anything, show something to show that you are actually working here. And then for the idea of people reaching out to you and not responding, it's just fast-paced sometimes. Sometimes a hiring manager from the company is like, yeah, here, find somebody for this role. And then 2 days later, the hiring manager is like, actually, we're going to go with another company because we need this filled now. And then it doesn't work out with and then it doesn't work out with that company. So they come back, and then now we're back at square one again. Okay, yeah, we're back. So it's unfortunate. The last company the company I worked with as a recruiter the first time around had a 15-week training process. And they definitely teach you what candidates like hate seeing, hate hearing, and they teach you how to mitigate that, how to prevent yourself from being that kind of recruiter. But because how fast the industry moves, like sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
To
that makes sense.
Be one of those recruiters. But in the corporate space, it's a little different. It's slow paced. Like you don't get to build the same kind of relationships with people, but you get to see them through the process.
How'd you make the transition?
So I was working as an agency recruiter and it was commission based. And I was like, this is not gonna work for me. Like, to constantly be working to maintain, and I'm like, I want to sleep. I want a vacation. I want to go live my life. And so I think I just kind of made in my mind, I was like, okay, I need to find a job that pays me this much minimum and like gives me an opportunity to work remotely. And so I did find that job. And then I heard like all these tech companies were hiring recruiters. So I was, even though I found that job, I like started applying to other companies, like bigger companies,
Mhm.
like startup companies, like unicorn companies. I was like, let me get the dollars. Let me see if I can make some money.
Yeah.
And I applied in a lot of different places, and I learned to study for interviews. I learned to like work on an interview, like process on
Mm.
how to answer questions, seem likable, and all of that. And then I put in I put in an application for my current company, and they just sent me an email saying they were interested in interviewing me. I studied a lot for that.
Mm.
I studied a whole lot. I'm grateful that that company also had like a interview training session. Like I was able to sit in on an interview training session with a recruiter from that company. And so um, I studied that training. I went in on that training a couple of times because they offered it a couple of times before,
Mhm.
between me like having that phone screen and my actual interview. Um, and I think I was able to, well, obviously I got the job, so I was able to lock it in. But I fumbled a lot of other interviews, to be honest. Like there were a lot of companies I did apply for that I thought I had it in the bag, but
Mhm.
I also like wrote a killer resume. Like my resume I thought was like top tier. I
Mm.
like looking at it, but
You frame it.
yeah, but I'm grateful that I just I just wanted a better life for myself. And I thought if I just made up in my mind that I would have that, I
Mhm.
could attain it. Remember I told you like
Yeah.
whatever I want, like I just go
Full
for it.
circle.
Yeah, I just go for it. I used to doubt myself previously, but doubt has you struggling.
Yeah.
So I try not to doubt myself.
That's awesome. It's funny. I was wanting to ask you one question, but I was like, maybe we'll wrap with this question. Going back through to the first question I asked you, I'll
Am I?
close with this. Are you still who you said you were?
Yeah. Still love my family, still eccentric, I'm still spontaneous, I'm still just me, like looking for new opportunities in this life. Now the new opportunities that we seek, we're a trio, because you know, me, my husband, and my little baby.
Mhm.
We travel together, we go to parties together. Our little daughter has been to many parties, and she's only 8 months. She's usually the only baby,
Yeah,
but she knows how to party, which is
that's awesome.
important. Yeah, but I appreciate this conversation, Asher. This was fun.
Me too. I thank you for doing this, and it's great catching up and just seeing how times have changed. It's like you'd be surprised what happens in over 10 years, but um in just 1 year for that matter,
Yeah,
it's like a
yeah.
whole nother life.
Life can change like that
Yeah. My buddy always says life be life and
all the time. I say that. That's good.
well, enjoy your night and happy pumpkin carving tomorrow.
Thank you, Asher.
Bye.
Bye.